So in summary, you guys left off. You had basically solved all of the riddles in the Mage's Tower, and you had found the phylactery. You stepped through a portal, leaving the Mage's Tower behind, and arrived on a strange island. You explored the island a bit and found that at the center of this island was a huge mountain, a single mountain. And then going up further, discovering that this, in fact, was some kind of dormant volcano. You went down into it, and after some debate about what to do with this mysterious black orb, you assumed that perhaps Estroff had been mentally affected by the magic of this thing that you guys discovered was the phylactery. So ultimately you ended up giving it to Alyssa, who then jettisoned it down into this volcano. You heard rumbling, you saw volcanic like magma just starting to erupt. Literally using the power of flight, you guys flew out of the volcano. You specifically swooped down to the base of the volcano because
reasons.
Because Humphrey was like, get the treasure. So you flew down, you grabbed all the treasure, then you flew out to the ocean as this massive volcanic eruption was happening behind you. Just flying as fast as you can across the ocean, nothing in sight, no land in sight. And as the magic of your flight was starting to fade, you saw a ship on the horizon. You flew, you landed on the deck of that ship. The crew of the ship was in awe. They were amazed. And you landed, and they called for the captain, and emerging from the captain's cabin was a handsome man with a clean-shaven face and piercing blue eyes, who introduced himself as Captain Edwards. And that is literally where we're picking up. So Captain Edwards is looking at all of you. And just to be clear who the all of you are, Durant, Humphrey, Tuco, Estroff, Riff, and Alyssa. So you guys have landed on this ship, flying in from across the open ocean. Captain Edwards is looking at you, and he says, "My name is Captain Edwards. Who exactly are you, and how did you get here?" And you notice he's kind of scanning the horizon behind you guys while also keeping an eye on you as a group.
I see him giving us the eye, and Tuco's kind of like phased a little bit, but instinctively kind of gets ready, goes for his, doesn't draw it, but just his hand is ready if there's going to be problems.
Durant is reflexively going to attempt to use his channel divinity to read surface thoughts.
Okay. You get the impression that the captain is suspicious. There's no land in sight. How is it that you came to be here? How are you not soaking wet? There are no ships that he can see anywhere around you. Certainly this must be some sort of magic. Or maybe have you been sent by the gods? Those are all kind of like these massive like flood of thoughts that are going through his head as he's examining you. Though his face does not betray any of these suspicions. He has a very neutral expression.
What is the crew doing? He didn't see us land, but the crew did.
The crew is all kind of in a big semicircle around you guys. And none of them have drawn their weapons yet.
Okay. And I would just, I guess Humphrey would say something like, actually, Humphrey was like, who are you? What are you doing here?
I am Captain Edwards. I'm the captain of this ship.
How did we get here?
How did you get here? Did you?
We don't know where here is.
Yeah. So I guess my guess is that we would probably start explaining how we got here. Like from our experience.
Let's do that. So he says, you don't know where you are or how you came to be here? And you notice one of the men chimes in at this point. Captain, they just came out of the air. They flew on the air and they landed on the deck.
Tuco looks over the way we came to see it. Can he see the volcano still?
In the deep distance.
I point over there. There's an island, or there was an island there. It blew up. We flew away to save ourselves and landed here.
The captain looks at you. He says, you flew.
Yes. Can't you guys fly?
Okay.
You visibly see most of the crew take like 2 steps back. The captain says, no, sir, we cannot fly.
Apparently we've landed here somehow. So where are you headed?
You notice that all about like the captain doesn't break eye contact with you guys, but you know what? Actually, now is a perfect time for you guys to make a first roll. Make me a perception plus social manipulation roll.
Right. Give me a second on that. So I don't.
Time for dice pools, everybody.
It'll be fun.
Okay.
What
So
are we
it's
rolling?
okay.
Social
So you're going to take the
manipulation?
numbers that you have in perception and the numbers you have in social manipulation.
Yeah.
And that's how many dice you're going to roll. And then you're going to tell me the
7.
total.
Okay, so it's a 7 times 4.
It's not 7 times 4. You roll that many dice.
Like, sorry, that's what I meant. Sorry, 74.
Yes.
Tuco got a 5.
Okay. Tuco, you notice. I'll tell you what you notice with a 5. You notice that the crew seems very in awe of all of you. And the captain is still looking at all of you.
Durant got an 11.
20.
You got a 20?
Yeah, 74.
Okay. So Durant, with an 11, you notice that the captain is looking at all of you, but you also notice that like half of the crew are looking at Estroff. Like, they're not even looking at you guys anymore. They're looking at Estroff and like whispering to each other. With a 20, Humphrey, you notice that the crew is looking at Estroff like they've never seen anyone like that before. Like, ever. Like, it would be like if somebody with purple skin showed up. Like,
so
they are looking at him like he's an alien.
What's the demographic of the crew?
So you see all of these humans are all a variety of different skin tones. Some of them are fair skinned, but the majority of them kind of have like tan skin.
Okay, all human.
Yes. Edwards himself is kind of fair skinned.
And so I look at them and I notice
most of them have brown hair or black hair. A couple of them have like ginger or blonde hair, but they're in the minority.
Tuco doesn't know this Captain Edwards, but does anyone in our party know him, and are they reacting to him differently?
You see Riff is very observantly looking at this situation.
So, and then I look over, I notice the crew. Humphrey notices the crew, side-eyeing Estroff, and I say, what, you've never seen a gnome before?
He is a gnome with plenty of alcohol.
All of their eyes pop wide. And you see them like repeating the word as if they've never heard that word. They're like, gnome?
So I want to whisper, or kind of motion to Estroff and say, might be a good idea to break out that bottle.
Estroff starts to reach for the bottle, and Captain Edwards puts up a hand and he says, please, would you accompany me to my cabin so that we may speak further? I do not wish for our ship to get off course, and the men need to concentrate on their tasks, but please accompany me to my quarters. And he barks off orders to the men. He's like, carry on, men, back to your positions. And then he walks and turns and he beckons for you to follow. You notice that like they do not immediately, like some of them break off and begin going to like the rigging and stuff, but a few of them are still like looking and whispering in awe. Do you guys follow him back?
Tuco's bringing up the rear, keeping an eye on the crew as we walk in.
Okay. The captain opens the door to his cabin. It is not a huge room. It's about a 12 by 12 space. There's a simple bunk. There's a desk and a chair. You see some navigational equipment and some maps laid out on the desk. The waters were relatively calm. So it's doing a moderate amount of rocking back and forth, but nothing heavy. He beckons you in. After all of you enter, he closes the door quietly behind, and he says, I do not wish to scare the men of my crew. They have never seen anything like this. But if you are here, surely there must be a reason why. He says, I have many questions, as perhaps you do as well.
Where are you headed?
We are on an expedition to a new island that was discovered only in the last few years. We have a large amount of supplies with the intent to establish a base camp on this island for further exploration.
Is this
I mean,
island
we're
near here?
in Forgotten Realms, right?
We were.
But yeah, so okay, but as
What
far as
port did
we
you sail
know,
out of?
As
We
far
were-
as you guys know,
okay,
yes.
okay. Then I'd like to ask, like, can you show us on the map where we are right now?
And what port
Certainly.
did you sail out of?
We left from O'Shale. We passed the Straits of Chodar and are now heading east. He goes over to a map. All of you should make a perception plus history roll. Tuco, you look at the maps and you're like, I don't recognize any of this.
21.
Durant, you look at the maps. You don't recognize any of this.
But my 5, I'm sure that's where the money is.
None of the land masses on this map look even remotely like anything that you know. You don't recognize any of the names attached to any of the land masses. None of it looks familiar.
I don't recognize this location, but the men said we flew from a certain direction. We came from an island.
Yes.
Is that the island you were going to?
No. If you came from where you had gestured, that must have been some uninhabited island.
Hmm.
We have several days of travel ahead of us.
Well, you saved our lives because no matter how we were able to fly, we couldn't go any further.
I
Humbly thank you for your hospitality.
am humbled by your presence. If
You are welcome.
if truly you are uncertain about how you came to be here, may I ask if any of you are holy men of any kind?
A Daenerys Light. I can serve that role.
Humphrey looks awkwardly around.
You notice that he seems confused by what you just said.
Surely you know of Daenerys.
I do not. Is that a deity?
It's a deity of where we come from.
I am not familiar with this. My apologies.
And then I hold up the symbol on the shield, Daenerys symbol with the candle and the emitting light.
What
This
does
is
the symbol
symbol
look
of
like?
Daenerys.
What does the symbol look like exactly? Is
Yeah,
it a
Eric.
is it a candle emitting light?
I have to remind myself.
You notice his confusion persists, and he looks at all of you and he says,
Oh yeah, lit candle above a purple eye with a triangular pupil.
you show him this, and he says, Savak Boku. He says, are you an acolyte of Savak Boku?
I am an acolyte of Daenerys, who I'm guessing by the symbol may be the same as Savak Boku. The light represents knowledge and wisdom as it spreads across mankind.
Were you sent here by your god?
Sent?
Is that how you came to fly? You surely you are you
Humphrey wants to like nudge him and like, you know, kind of like nod. Yeah, tell him yes.
We were on a quest.
Our quest brought us here, so it stands to reason that it was the will of someone. Savak Boku could certainly have.
the gods granted you the power to fly here? Did you fly from the sky? He like looks upward, even though there's a roof to the cabin.
Our passage through was different. We passed through a tower of many magical things.
Challenges.
He says, are you celestials, my lords?
I don't believe us to be celestials.
He says,
But a human.
I have heard of the myth of the celestials.
Humphrey says, "Can you give us a moment, please?" And then kind of like gestures the group to the side so we can kind of talk this through ourselves.
He nods and he kind of steps away back towards his desk.
Okay.
Alyssa leans forward towards you and she says, I have a feeling that we are not in the Sea of Fallen Stars.
I say, guys.
Alyssa, do you still have your map?
Yes.
Should we show that to the captain and see if we can compare to his map? I don't know these map things very well, so that could be a good thing or a bad thing.
So
she nods and she kind of gingerly steps over towards the captain's desk, and you hear her basically begin to talk with the captain and unfurl her map, and they begin looking at it. Cut back to you guys.
Do we actually know?
why can't we just tell the guy the truth?
Do we actually know your history though? Sorry, I'm forgetting your character's name, Nathan.
Oh, me? Humphrey.
Yeah. Humphrey. Do we actually know Humphrey's like history at this point?
I mean, to a certain extent, right?
Or do we just assume that he's like the birthday party clown guy?
What the?
The birthday party cat.
Jesus Christ. Okay. I mean, yes. I mean, I assume that you know, as we've gone through this, Humphrey has confided a little bit that you guys we are bonded as a group that has gone through it. Humphrey would like to assume that he is part of the team at this point, right? But everybody knows that Humphrey is looking just to make that last big score so he can retire and just write out the rest of his days in ease.
And Tuco knows that you were a military man, and that's why he became indentured to you and to help you find your retirement.
Mr. Humblebottom, it seems like this might be more in your skill set than mine. Maybe you should navigate how we proceed here.
Fair enough. So now the group's still around. We're still having a private conversation.
Yeah,
And
Astroff is also like leans in and whispers, and he's like, "Why do you suppose that they're looking at me like they've never seen a little person? Maybe they haven't."
I say, guys, so we have two choices here. We either tell them the truth that we have no idea how we got here, and that it's a mystery just to us as it is to them, or we lie through our teeth until our pants catch fire. And so, to me, I don't see any harm in telling them the truth here, because I don't know that line is going to get us anywhere any better. What do you guys think?
Would Tuco have noticed Riff eyeing Captain Edwards?
Yes, and Riff is still eyeing Captain Edwards and watching Alyssa and Captain Edwards as they discuss the maps.
Master Riff, you look like you know something.
Riff's like, "I don't know anything, and I'm very confused because I was under the impression also that we were in the Sea of Fallen Stars."
But that is what we all, but you look like you recognize something. If this seems all new to all of us, you are the only one that seems to recognize something.
I've heard stories about a Captain Edwards. I've heard stories.
Never
What
met
do you
him.
know?
And possibly, as you may recall, the imprisoned old man in the Mage's Tower may have somehow been a older version of this Captain Edwards. That's what I was under the impression of, but perhaps not. Riff seems very boggled by this.
Remember, we heard
Wasn't there
stories
something
of
about
crossing over.
dragons coming to the River of the Falling Stars from a faraway land or something?
Riff says there are stories that the Sea of Fallen Stars was created when enormous meteors landed in the realms and plunged deep into the earth and tore open chasms that flooded then to create the Sea of Fallen Stars. Whether that's true, who knows?
So have we moved, or have we simply gone back to a period before those things happened?
So I go around to everybody. I say, we don't know what situation that we're in right now. And he recognizes what Durant was just sort of pondering of like we don't know if we moved in time or we moved in place or both. But I said, but we need to make a decision how we want to treat these people, right? Are we just as confused as they are, or are we going to portray ourselves to be something else? I suggest we just tell them we don't know what happened. What do you guys think?
Daenerys favors the truth, as do I.
Riff
My
says,
only caution is when you know little, you do not want to give away your weakness.
Riff says, I think honesty is also the best policy, though we may be careful in whom we trust with our story.
You need to trust someone true.
And this captain seems like an honorable man.
Okay. So Humphrey nods and says, "Okay, guys," and he motions to Alyssa and kind of with a map to go over and say, "It's a, Captain, we don't exactly know how we got here. We are, as that has been said by Tuco and others, we are incredibly grateful for your hospitality, and we thank you so much. Would you help us understand? Does this map look familiar to you?" And he kind of motions over to Alyssa.
Yeah, so Alyssa's shown him the map, and both of them shake their heads.
Okay.
Captain Edwards says, I know no such continent as what is depicted in this map. He says, I have, my travels over the past 20 years have brought me all around the continent, past many of the islands. He's like, I have sailed past Chodar, but I have never set foot on that island for fear of the many legends about it. He says, I have not seen any such landmass as what is depicted on her map.
Remind me where they're going again.
He says
didn't he already answer that?
the island that is our destination has been called Ostrov.
Why are you going there?
We are on commission from a company in O'Shale, which seeks to create a base camp to explore this island. The original discoverers had a brief exploration and were able to uncover very valuable resources. And the company would like to invest and explore this island to determine what else could be gained from it. So our expedition is to find a harbor on this island and to establish a base camp there. And then after a few months, we're going to return to O'Shale and deliver whatever we were able to gain and likely provide more information and perhaps map out some of the islands so that the company can decide what they wish to do after that.
So Captain,
What
would you
company
be
do you
willing
speak
to
of?
let us travel with you?
Of course.
And we will obviously work alongside the crew and earn our keep.
He says, yes,
Sure,
of
here's-
course, there's no other landmass for miles and miles. We passed the Strait of Chodar 2 weeks ago. So I have no choice, nor do you, unless the gods bequeath you with additional blessings to be able to fly. But you of course are welcome to accompany us.
Thank you very much. And then he kind of motions over to Tuco. Looks like he wants to talk.
He
This
says, I do not mean to be impolite, but I must ask, is your small friend, is he one of the Chodari?
Chodari?
He does not look like a Goot, not that I've ever seen a Goot, but he would appear to be a small person.
Our friend here is as equal as any one of us.
I do not discount him. I simply ask because I have never seen one of his stature, nor has anyone on my crew.
So this is where I kind of would expect Astrov to speak up for himself. And
Astrov says, I'm a forest gnome, if that's what you be asking. Is gnome the name of your tribe? No, it's my people. Captain Edwards says, I must apologize. I've never heard of these people. He says,
and then I say, is this going to be a problem with the crew?
I do not think it would be a problem. It's simply, I wish to inform you that it is something that we have never seen before.
You don't have small people, halflings, gnomes?
No.
Little people? No?
Well, not in my age, certainly, but it is known that the Goot who dwell on Arakazine have not been seen in many generations. They have, by all accounts, it is not even known whether they still live or if they have simply isolated themselves.
Would we, meta moment here, would we be able to ask a question that asks them basically, what year is this?
I mean, I assume so, but
Yes, you could ask that. Your frame of reference. So let me think about it.
That's the part that confused me. Are we using the same?
Well, your frame of
vocabulary?
reference is in the realms, and I'm pretty sure that you were in like 1234 in the realms, somewhere in that era.
Okay.
So it's like that's your frame of reference, right? Like if you ask what year it is and he tells you it's 3296, your frame of reference, your character's frame of reference would be like, wait, what?
Right. And that's
Right.
why
So it's
trying to find a common
but it's
baseline
also
here.
yeah, it's meta, but it's also in character, right? Because your character's frame of reference would have been the realm's timeline.
If it's like in the year of our Lord and he says 3298 is the year of the dragon.
Right. What does that mean to anybody? Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Then I then disregard.
But you could still ask them.
No, you can and you should. I'm going to tell you.
You're not the boss of me.
I'm going to tell you an answer, but I'm going to tell you that answer is.
You should ask this question, but it's a stupid question.
But it's a
Well,
great
but
question.
if your character would ask it, then you should ask it.
Fine, I will ask the stupid question. Captain, would you mind? I know this may sound silly and stupid and almost as if somebody advised me not to ask this, but what year is this?
He says we are in the year 1100.
Cool story, bro. Okay. I don't
Like the
know what I
century, the
expected out of
century
it.
turned. He said that the century turned 6 months past.
1100. And so I guess so Humphrey was going to look back, kind of side eye his people.
He says,
and-
do you mean to ask of a Rakazine? He says it is the year 1100 of the Dominion.
which effectively means nothing to us, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool
What is
story,
you
bro.
speak words we have not heard before. It sounds like we are speaking words you have not heard before.
But I understand you. You bear no accent. You sound like people from the Midlands, which is what confused me.
So we basically sound like we're from Ohio. Just the common accent for everybody.
He says,
What about our little friend here? Does he sound the same as us to you?
yes, more or less. His speech is not all that different from what I would have heard from folk from Eimfeis or Zuefeis.
Well, I'm not sure of these lands and times and stuff that you mentioned. It makes no sense to me. But as I said before, we are grateful for your rescuing us. Where we come from, we should not just expect to be fed and clothed and provided for. We were on a quest and we came across some treasure. I would be happy to share it with you to pay for our lodgings. And I pick up some of the stuff that I had in my pockets, and hand it over to him if this would help out at all.
And to that Humphrey kind of like, what are you doing, man?
Well, here's an important question that I'm going to ask you. As I mentioned, those bags of treasure included statues, goblets, but you also have like gold and silver coins.
I would probably just pick a handful of gold and silver coins, and it doesn't really mean much to me.
He nods gratefully and he looks at the coins and he says, I'm not familiar with this minting. From where were these coins minted?
Do we know ourselves?
Yeah. You guys look at them and you're like, oh yeah, those are Sembian coins.
Yeah. You've never seen Sembian coins before?
I have not. What is a Sembian?
It is near the land where we are from.
My apologies.
Either way, though, even if you have not seen them, they are made with the same material. They can be melted into whatever you need.
I am certain that anyone would accept them. I'm simply remarking on the strangeness of their minting. He says, gifts are not necessary, but they are appreciated.
What do you
I will make
know what it
arrangements
looks
for
like?
you to have one of the crew cabins if you don't mind sharing. Our space is a little bit tight, but you'll be more comfortable in the crew cabin than trying to simply sleep in the cargo hold.
We appreciate it. Okay. How far until we reach our destination?
We have, by my estimates, perhaps another 3 days. So
Okay.
not long.
Let us know. Thank you for your hospitality. Let us know what we can do to make sure that we are earning our keep.
If you are familiar with sailing or navigation, you could certainly help out, but otherwise consider yourselves my guests. And by all means, for whatever travels you have done, you likely deserve and may require rest. And I will lead you to the quarters. So Captain Edwards leads you guys back out onto the deck and then turns pretty promptly to a set of stairs that go down to the next deck down. There's immediately when you get down the stairs, there's kind of like a kitchen and dining area. And then there's a kind of long hallway with doors on either side going off to these cabins.
How big of a boat is this?
It's a fairly decent sized ship. And you see that the stairs continue down further, by the way, but that you assume goes to the cargo hold. He leads you down the hall and pulls out a key and unlocks one of the doors, opens the door, and you notice that there are bunks. There are 8 bunks. He hands the key to you, Humphrey, and he says, I will inform the men to bunk up in some of the other cabins so that this cabin might be for you.
Thank you very much.
Captain,
Excuse
sir.
me, Captain. Oh,
If you are hungry by any means, the cook is in the kitchen. I will inform him to accommodate you with food as you so desire.
I would like to practice my martial skills. Is there any place that I could work out without?
He says, I would prefer so as not to distract the crew. He's like, if you would like to do so, there's more space down below in the cargo hold. You should have some light coming through from above that will allow you to see down there.
Thank you, Captain. That will be more than adequate. Just didn't want to cause you more trouble.
Captain, one other thing.
Yes.
Are there any reading materials on board about the histories or the
Nice.
company itself that I might pass? the
That's
time
why you're
with?
the smart one.
He says, I do have some books in my cabin, and I'm happy to loan them to you if you'd like to peruse.
I would. Thank you.
Certainly. Take your time. He's like, we have several days of travel yet, and by all means, you're nice. There you go. By all means, you are welcome to eat, to rest as you see fit. He nods and kind of politely walks out. So you guys, in short order, have time, and you eat, you rest. All of you guys rest.
Tuco doesn't eat a lot.
Okay. You notice that the food is, it's very basic seafaring food. It's kind of a mix of, dried foods and hardtack, and occasionally there's some kind of fish stew that they have. It's not the greatest meals you've ever had, but it seems like the kind of meals that are consistent with seafaring. And over the
Tuco
days,
looks a little paler than normal too.
yeah, it takes a little while. At some points, there's some rough patches in the sea, and the ship's rocking forth quite a bit. And at that point, you also would learn that all of the tables and the benches for the tables in the mess hall are nailed to the floor, so they don't slide back and forth. Durant, at some point, you go to the captain. He gives you a few books and you begin reading. In short order, you discover that the captain's city that he referenced, O'Shale, is a port city in the kingdom of Imphais, which is on the continent of Arakazine. You learn some of the history of Arakazine. This is not like a comprehensive history book, but basically you learn of some of the history of Arakazine. You learn that it was occupied by a race known as the Kemrog, and for a very long time, the Kemrog occupation basically held the people of Arakazine as their slaves. That there was an uprising of the humans in Arakazine, led by a figure known as Cronin, and that Cronin not only fought off many of the Kemrog colonies, but also brought together other denizens of Arakazine, including an avian race, a race of bird people known as the Scree-Kep, a race of mountain-dwelling small folk known as the Goot, a race of feline humanoids known as the Makwo, a race of gray-skinned, hairless humanoids known as the Nizak, and together this coalition, which was known as the Union of Arakazine, fought off the Kemrog and drove them from Arakazine.
What were the bird-like people called?
The Scree-Kep, Skreekep. Goot is spelled Ghuut. Makwo is Mahquo. Nizak is Nyzzok.
Is there a description of what the Kemrogs look like at any point?
Yes. They're a lizard people. They're described as lizard people.
Of course they are.
They're also described as being very powerful with magic.
Okay. Well, what are we doing right now? Just resting, relaxing?
I'm studying.
Tuco's working out.
I think it would be fair that in this book you would have a basic assertion of the regions of Arakazine.
So we figured out that basically we're in this region called Arakazine.
You know the continent that he came from, that his ship sailed from, is Arakazine.
Okay. And where we are going is a previously uncharted area?
Yes, and that
With-
island was called Ostrov.
Ostrov.
Right.
And we have been
Ostrov.
we
So
are-
Durant, you also would have learned that just basics about the regions of Arakazine. That in the far north are these frozen lands called the Northlands. On the western side of the continent is the Great Forest, the western coast, the Old Dominion, the Lake and River region, and then moving south is the Midlands and then the Southlands. So that's kind of the western side from top to bottom. On the eastern side of Arakazine are the ancient kingdoms, the eastern coast, and then that also connects to the Southlands.
Sorry, say again the eastern.
Ancient kingdoms, eastern coast. Durant, in a different book, you would have read about the discovery of an area called Nicaea, Nisia, which is a chain of islands. And this book seems much more recent.
Anything more detailed than just island chain?
There are a number of different colonies. Some of them are colonies established by Arakazine. Some of them are colonies established by Sakurans, and some of them are colonies established by Sueneist. And actually, the Sueneist would have been referenced as a people of Arakazine. The indigenous people of Arakazine are described as well in one of those books.
The Democratic People's Republic of Arakazine. Sorry. I'll seat myself out.
The people of Arakazine would have been listed as the Araki, Araki, the Kronii, Kroni, the Sueneist, Suenist, and the Rogaru, Rogaru.
Where was O'Shale in
O'Shale,
Arakazine?
is a port city in the kingdom of Eimphis, which is the northern half of the Midlands. The Midlands are divided up into two kingdoms: Eimphis, Imfis, and Zuaphis, Zuaphis.
Northern half of the Midlands.
Yes, the Eimphis is the northern half. Zuaphis is the southern half.
That's probably all Tuco would know. Remember?
I'm definitely gonna have to rewatch this video to capture all that
Yeah,
again.
no shit, right?
So you spend basically 3 days poring over a very limited supply of books, and that's kind of the gist of what you get.
Do I get any information on the company that this vessel works for?
The company that commissioned them is the Noble House of Tibaugh, Tibbaughh.
Does it give like key figures within that company, or like manifests of the ship?
I don't think
cargo?
he would have. I don't think he necessarily would have like tried to hide this from you, but it's basically a charter. It's not like a book. It's you know a few sheafs of paper that describe the charter, and the backers of this expedition are the Noble House of Tibaugh. It doesn't really go into like a breakdown of the nobility of O'Shale.
Are there any? I mean, specifically, I'm looking for key names within the company. Like, would the charter have been signed by somebody?
Yes. Landris Tibaugh.
And I don't know what you do with your mic, Eric, but it's coming through a lot louder now.
And Captain Edwards obviously would have been listed as the commissioned officer for the expedition. So you guys have had multiple days. Tuco, during this time, you said you wanted to go train, so you go below deck. When you get below deck, there's like basically hanging from a post, there's like a lantern, and you see just stacks of crates, just the entire length of the cargo hold of the ship. Massive stacks of crates, and you see from above the grate that looks down where the pulleys and stuff would these crates would go into nets and be pulled up. But it's a pretty open space, and at certain points you're doing your training, you're kind of hopping from one stack of crates to another, that sort of thing. And the second day that you're doing this, you sense someone is watching you. And you turn and you see that there is someone kind of in a corner of the cargo hold. And you see like a bedroll. It looks like they're basically living down there. You see like a bedroll. You see some sacks with like food and stuff. You see some clothes kind of in a pile. But what strikes you is that this doesn't look like any of the humans that you've seen on this ship. You notice that this person is very ectomorphic.
What's that?
Like a tall, thin, but very muscular and sinewy build. He is not wearing a shirt. He has like short pants on, kind of like, pantaloons that go to like the knee. He's also not wearing any shoes. And when you see him, you also notice that he's completely hairless. No facial hair, no hair on his head, no eyebrows, no body hair. And he's kind of looking at you sort of just curiously. And it occurs to you that you've seen someone like this before.
Oh, no.
When you guys made the journey from the king who sleeps to the mage tower. Do you remember crossing across a chasm?
Yeah.
Yes, there's the guy that had the.
Yes. And the guy that you saw at the center of that crossing looks like the exact same species as this person who's watching you now.
Wasn't that the dude that gave us everything?
He's the one that gave us the
Oh yeah, the
tune
boost.
that allowed us to get there. He was like a watcher or a guardian, something like that.
And we ate some food or something,
yep.
and then we got a little bit of a buff.
Does he
Okay.
look like he's a member of the crew, or does he look like he's a stowaway trying to hide?
He doesn't look like a member of the crew.
Is he?
But he also
trying-
doesn't, he's also not in like a very well hidden place.
Okay, so it doesn't look like he's like trying to hide. He
Correct.
could be just okay. Hello,
Do we
sir.
recognize it? Do we sorry, before that, do we
Right.
recognize the person? Like, is it the same person or just somebody who matches those same features?
Tuco's the only person down there, but he doesn't look like the
Oh, right.
exact same person. But he
Okay.
definitely looks like the same species.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Tuco.
You greet him and he
Yep.
he puts up a hand.
Are you interested in training? I see you watching me.
I have not seen curved blade. like
Curved
you
blade.
have.
Curved blade. Very quick. Long blade, usually very heavy. I'm not strong, so hard for me to use a straight blade, but curved blade, I can go very fast.
He says, yes, you move fast. He says, how you come here?
I am not sure. And I kind of rub my head. It has been a long journey and many things I do not understand. I think me and my friends are from a different place. I don't know this Sakura, but even the place I came from, I don't really know where I am from. My parents were killed when I was small and I just survived.
He says, Nizak come from Arakazin.
Is that your name? Is it Nizak?
We are Nizak. My name, Gren.
Gren. Gren, I am Tuco. It is an honor to meet you.
Why do you have an intelligence of 8?
So are you a member of the crew here?
Yes, I await come to island, then work.
So are you passenger?
No, I am labor. I work when captain tell me work,
I see.
but I don't like sea waters. Make me sick.
Yes. I've never felt like this before. I don't understand what's going on.
He says, this not bad. Bren been through other trips on boats. Much, much worse.
This must be it, what I'm struggling with then. The headaches, the stomach aches. I don't like eating much even.
Yes, sometimes if waters move big, Bren make pile of food from throat. He says, not much more time for going on this ship, then get to land. We'll feel better on land, Tuco.
I hope so. I cannot fight battles honorably like this. That is why I train, to try and forget this feeling.
He says, nice meet you.
Nice meeting you too. If you would like to train with me, anytime I would be happy to teach what little I know.
Bren, not really fight. But
We all
good.
fight our battles our own way.
Yes.
Live honorably.
He says, Bren be here. Take sleep. And you see him kind of go back over to the bedroll, and he just sort of lays down. You could see now that he does not look well. Kind of looks, not that you could tell because his skin doesn't really flush, but he seems a little clammy, as if maybe he's seasick a little bit. So a few days later, the captain comes to you and he says, we've sighted land. We're going to be circling the island and looking for a harbor, something deep enough where we could drop anchor, but close enough where we can get the supplies on shore through the boats. He's like, you can come up to the deck if you'd like.
I whisper to Nathan, Master, should we try to fly around the island? Would that make things worse or better?
How big is the island?
Well, so you guys go out and you see that you're a few miles off, and it looks like there's a relatively large island that goes for miles, and then you see there are other.
It's like an archipelago.
Yeah, you see there are other kind of small islands that maybe look. Some of them look kind of just rocky and barren. And
is it like an
some of them look
archipelago, or is it like a sandbar style thing where there's just tiny little bits jumping out?
No, it looks more like an archipelago. Like
Okay.
the islands, the islands that are kind of on the outer ring as you are approaching the larger island seem to be smaller. Some of them are just kind of rocky, and then some of them are like foliage and trees and kind of. I should mention that it's pretty warm. Like it's warm.
Okay.
And not just seasonally warm like summertime, but like this is kind of a Mediterranean sort of climate. Very humid. Even the winds off the ocean are kind of keeping the air moving. But
So what you're saying is that my balls are sweating. Got it.
yeah, it is sultry.
Great. Okay, so we think we've landed in on the main island.
Yeah, you haven't landed yet. So the ship basically for the rest of that day kind of circles, because the captain is hesitant to try to bring the ship between those archipelago little outcroppings and islands. So you end up going kind of north around the island, sort of leaving behind this larger crescent, and kind of continue around.
So Humphrey had fly before. What domain would that be under?
There are multiple options for how you
Spatial material. You could do it energetic.
You could do energetic. That would probably be the way that in which you most natively would use that.
Well, so reasonably looking at this, if Humphrey was to do a fly spell per the advice of counsel, would he reasonably expect to be able to do a flyover of the island inside of 10-15 minutes?
No, this is miles and miles and miles.
Okay.
It would take you a while.
Okay.
Because your speed is also a factor, right?
Right.
So would it even be valuable to the captain? Because yeah, the harbor's over there, but you don't know what the shoals or whatever that.
I would like to just observe the island to see if I can notice any like settlements, smoke in the air, maybe large animals moving.
Solid thinking, yeah.
Good call. One other thing. You definitely got the impression that your arrival by flight was not something that was normal. You You also got the impression that magic might not be something that these people experience.
Interesting. Well, sucks to be
I'm just
them.
positing that for you so that you have a frame of reference based on what you've seen, heard, and read within the last few days.
Okay,
The
so this
only
is an
reference-
uncharted. Sorry, go ahead.
The only reference to magic being used was in reference to the Kemrog enslaving a continent of people.
Okay, so this
So it
is an
stands to reason they
uncharted-
have a negative impression of magic.
Yes. Though in your discussion with the captain, it would seem that these people certainly must believe in gods because that's what they were attributing your arrival to.
Okay, so this is a previously uncharted area. So when we talk about a harbor, it's really just a place they can make landfall on a rowboat. It's not like there's a dock they can go up to.
No, there's nothing like that.
Right. So they're
This
going
is
to
not-
anchor out and then go out in a boat.
Exactly. They're looking for a harbor that, where they could drop anchor, and then these supplies are going to have to be brought in multiple waves with the boats.
Would it be possible for Durant to help them locate a harbor?
Yes. So are you speaking magically?
No, I'm just speaking with my
With his
capability
eyeballs.
as a standard issue human being.
Standard issue.
So
human.
I will describe what you're seeing. As you are going, so you were kind of coming at this island from the west, right? So you're looking east. You saw a bunch of little, archipelago, little islands. You saw kind of a larger sort of crescent of island, and you see this jungle of the main island. But you definitely sense that there are mountains. You see the elevations, right? So like it looks like kind of closer to the center of the island is more mountainous. And as he is directing the ship away from the archipelago and kind of to the north of the island, again, along the coast, you see just jungle, right? And I'm going to say that, you're probably still maybe a mile out along the coast. But you see the mountains very prominently. You see the jungle. He continues to kind of go along the northern end, heading east. And then you kind of come around a bend and sort of follow that. Again, staying about a mile out from the coast. And almost at dusk, he drops the sails, and you see that there is kind of a cove that goes in towards the island. And he kind of drops the sails and slows the ship down, steers the rudder in to this cove. And you go in about a half mile, and that's where the captain calls to drop the anchor. Actually, not even, like a quarter mile. So the ship comes to a halt, and the captain says, "We'll stay here on board for the night." He's like, "I don't want to go make landfall at night and try to deal with that." He's like, "I don't know what's going to be there. I'd rather do that during the day." He says, so he sets up a watch. Some of the sailors are on watch. And then basically, he has rotations of people going down to the mess hall to eat, and then people sleeping. He tells you guys that you're free to do what you will, but he suggests you get rest because at dawn he wants to start loading up boats and making for the shore.
Captain, is there any civilization on this island that you're aware of? Or is it completely
He says
uninhabited?
no. The initial exploration. He invites you into his office. He shows you a very basic map of what looks like maybe just just a part of the eastern side of the island where you guys are. Like it kind of shows the harbor. It shows, the jungle, and it shows what looks like a lake and maybe a river and some hills and then some of the mountains. And he says the initial expedition really only explored for a few miles in from this cove. He says, so my goal is to find suitable land close to some fresh water where we could set up a base camp. And then once that's established, we'll begin some of the exploration.
So to the group, I'm like, do we want to be in a place with no people, or do we want to stay on this ship and go back to civilization where we may be able to find more answers?
Your understanding was that the ship's not going back to civilization until the expedition's done. So like he mentioned months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Humphrey says, look, the quickest way out of this is going to be through. So the quicker we can help these guys get what they need, the quicker we get back home.
Very well.
Or at least where we need to go.
So the night goes pretty uneventfully. The next morning you guys awaken to the sound of just work. The sound of the winch and the pulley pulling nets full of crates up, and these longboats that were lashed to the side of the ship being loaded down, and stuff being loaded into the ships, and crews of men starting to row in to the land. And the captain's kind of overseeing all of this. And for the first few hours, it's literally just 4 ships going into the land, unloading, 4 ships coming back. You notice that Gren, the Nizak, is amongst the men when he's doing this. And
Is anyone staying with the goods as they're unloaded, or are they just literally unloading them on the beach?
Yeah, so they have like a group of like 6 people who stay, and Gren is one of those who stay on land. And after like the first few waves, the captain says, would you like to go ashore? He's like, I
would.
I can have the men row you to shore. You could stay with the supplies and the men there as they're unloading them. He's like, once the majority of our basic supplies are offloaded, the rest will remain on the ship, and we'll all go to land and begin moving in to find suitable space to set up.
So he would row our boat ashore. Hallelujah.
Yes, we will row your boat to shore.
That's Durant's song.
Right.
So you guys you guys join one of the boats, and 20 minutes later you make it to the beach. It's kind of a rocky beach, but it's a beach nonetheless, mix of sand and rocks. And you see stacks of these crates already kind of moved up pretty far inland, about 100 yards away from the coast. You see that each of these crates look pretty substantial, and they have these poles, and there are 4 men who are each kind of carrying these crates. And then you see Gren, the Nizak, literally with one crate on his back, and ropes like strapped to the crate around that he's holding, and he's just kind of trudging up on his own, doing the work of 4 men.
Are the men themselves?
They are hardy. No, they're hardy guys, but
no, but are they busy? Do they know what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, it looks like
don't.
It looks like they're all kind of moving inland from the cove and kind of west.
I asked one of the laborers, do you know where we are supposed to make camp?
He said the captain said to bring us about halfway between the cove and the lake.
Okay, so Tuco wants to look and see if he can find a good place for camp.
Okay. Well, so you guys kind of accompany the train of guys as they're going in. And you walk about a half mile and you see that they've kind of stopped in a position where there's a little bit of a clearing. And then it looks like you could see what looks like a path that maybe was cut a while ago, perhaps by the original expedition, that leads further west. Like you see like the tree stumps basically, and it looks like a path was cut through the jungle that leads further west. But the men have stopped and they're kind of setting all this stuff up and putting up tents.
Okay. Tuco will help him do that.
Okay.
Humphrey turns to the group and says, what do you think the likelihood that we get out of this without me getting blow darted in the butt?
Oh, I fully expect it.
So do I. So do I.
Luckily,
The sounds, by the way,
I can take care of that.
Thank you, sir.
You see wildlife everywhere. There's insects all over the place. I mean, like there's just an incredible amount of like wildlife, like just little colorful birds, and like you see like lizards running around. You see like insects. It just looks like this is a very fertile place. And after about half of the day, they've unloaded the supplies that they need from the ship. And the captain, like there are multiple tents being put up. There are these like wooden, frames, and they're laying out bedrolls on these wooden frames with ropes stretched across them for bunks, basically. The crates are all being organized. There's a larger tent that's like a mess tent being set up, and you see the cook kind of setting up a kitchen. People are gathering wood for fire and all these kind of camp building activities.
Are there like enough scraps of materials around that Durant could make some kind of an altar to, non-denominational gods, I guess?
Sure. I'll say that. I mean, there are.
Is that really Durant's style, though, to non-denominational gods?
Well, okay, no, but I'm trying to be nice to these people.
Fair enough.
And I do have 3 in scrounging, so.
Yeah, no roll necessary. I mean, you find a variety. First of all, a variety of like rocks, that look like chipped off, slate and other kinds of materials that are just kind of there. There are plenty of trees there. In fact, some of the crew are cutting down trees and kind of stripping the saplings, and that kind of stuff to make them usable. Plenty of rope, plenty of materials. You notice that many of the men are heading down that path to the west, carrying, barrels, basically empty barrels. And they return, and you've determined that they've gone down that path and that leads to the lake, and they have filled up barrels with water.
So the camp is not built on the water, it's built some distance away.
Yeah, I'll say maybe a quarter mile from the lake. It's a short walk.
Okay. Does the lake feed into any streams that pass this way, or would we not be able to know that?
No, not where you are.
Okay.
And I mean, if you go down to the lake, like you go down to the edge, and it looks like it's about a mile around. So it's a pretty decently sized freshwater lake. The water looks clean. It doesn't look stagnant. It looks pretty clean.
And the source of water for the lake is coming down from the mountains, or
It looks like it's coming from that direction. Yeah.
okay.
But again, you'd have to follow the lake around to see where that goes. And as the day goes by, it's literally an entire day just spent setting up a basic camp, and nightfall comes. They have a fire going. The captain has, men on watch. Most of them have like short swords. None of them are wearing armor. And the captain has made an accommodation for you guys as well. Like you have your own tent. The crew seems to be very friendly, like with you guys.
How are they feeling about Estrov these days?
Yeah, so a few of them are just like enamored, it seems, with Estrov and with Tuco. And they're like, some of them ask, like, you know, how do you speak our language? Like they're genuinely like interested, and so what is it like in your land? And they you know, they're kind of more curious than they are afraid.
Mm. Yeah. I don't know why that makes me feel good. I like that. So, okay.
When I was training, our masters were what we called elves. They spoke a different language. They spoke like this, and I speak in Elvish.
They look at you like you're saying absolute gibberish. They're like, what's elves?
And then I'm going to speak what little Orcish I know for true gibberish.
All right, you start speaking Orcish, and like some of them, you notice that it's a little bit of a different reaction, and you see them kind of whispering to each other.
No, no.
What is that tongue that you spoke? Sounds like Ordur.
Ordur. There's a foul race of creatures in our land called orcs. That is their tongue. I learned it mainly to manipulate them.
You notice like a little suspicion. They're like, it has the guttural sound of the Ordur.
I don't know if we're in the future or in the past. But I'm very
Tell
curious.
me of these Ordur.
The Ordur are like, so at a certain point, like the captain comes over and he says the Ordur are they are a people, very primitive people. They do not dwell in cities. They're not civilized. They are barbaric. They move from place to place. They often raid and attack and take things. They're not a good people.
Sounds like the dishonorable Orcish.
These
Some
sound
say
very much like
some say that they served the Kemrog during the time of the Kemrog occupation, that they were low servants for the Kemrog. They're not very commonly seen. There's of course rumors sometimes that in the foothills east of Imfeis that the Ordur still live there.
the orcs are much more common, I believe, in our lands. They are a similar problem and act in much similar ways, but they are also simple of mind. I have told them
The Ordur are not learned, but they can be cunning.
I have at times asked them to flee, and they have.
Then you are either mighty or blessed by the gods.
Interesting. I don't know how to get to figuring out if we're in the future or in the past.
Night falls, and as I said, the captain has watches. Some of them are sort of sentinels around the camp, and then some of them are on patrols. Torches are lit, campfires are maintained.
Tuco offers to stand watch with them.
They accept that offer, and you kind of do the patrols with them. Occasionally they go back to the coast, and you see the ship anchored in the harbor. You see a few dim, what you assume are lanterns on board the ship, but everything seems to be okay. And other than that, you guys, get a full rest. It seems, it's a little, it takes a little bit of time acclimating, because even at night, it's still like a balmy, like 80 degrees. But it seems like most of the sailors have, shed what clothing they can. You notice that one of the sailors seems to be at least somewhat familiar with this kind of situation, and had taken the sap from some of these long plants and had kind of smeared it on himself. And you notice some of the other sailors following suit. And
As a bug repellent?
Yeah, basically that's the gist that you get. The morning comes, everyone's fine, everybody's rested.
Durant would like to take this time to pray at the shrine.
Okay.
It's sort of, would his previous prayers have been, would it seem like they have been heard prior to today, or?
So go ahead and make a perception plus religion roll.
And that's not a great roll. 12.
Well, it's good enough. You don't feel like a connection to Denier.
Okay.
You feel like you're saying your prayers, but it's almost like rote. Like you don't have like a spiritual feeling in your heart when
Just going through the motions.
Yes. But it doesn't seem to affect your ability. Like even if you just minorly invoke, like, the perceptive ability of any of your magic types, like you sense that you still have these abilities, these magical abilities, but your prayers don't seem to be, you're not feeling it.
I'm going to try changing out Daenerys for Savak Baku.
Whoa.
Response.
Is that something? Sorry, I shouldn't tell you how to play your character. I'm just curious, like, is that that doesn't feel like something, if I was a devout follower of my deity.
Well, but it's been described that the deity with that name is similar here. So I'm going to see if it responds with the different name.
So now you're going to make a willpower plus religion roll.
That's a 15.
Okay. So you begin to pray to Savak Boku. Though your mind, you're kind of visualizing Denier, but you're singing the name Savak Boku. And you feel like a warmth on your forehead, like right in the middle of your forehead. Now, let me ask you this. When Durant is praying, are you doing this with your eyes closed?
Yes.
Okay. You feel this warmth on your forehead, and for ever so brief of a moment, you see the area around you. Like completely around you.
As if his eyes were open?
As if your eyes were open, but also kind of in a spatial sort of way.
Like 360 or?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
my understanding. Yeah.
Like basically mechanically speaking, it's you know that it's magical because your eyes are closed, and you know, like logically, that you should not be able to see what you're seeing around you, but like within a 20-foot radius of you, you can kind of sense everything that's going around you. And it's you feel like this warm feeling that you have like in the middle of your forehead is somehow linked to the prayers that you're making. And then it kind of winks out. And that is actually a good point at which we should stop.
Well, hello, and welcome to Bill Allan World. I am Wizzy, the Wizard. I'm back once again to remind you to subscribe and click on the notifications button, and also watch videos that are over there. Tune in to the next episode of whatever show you are just watching, and watch other shows featuring Bill. He made me say that because he's a narcissist. Okay, bye.